Good morning. It's good to be here with you all. A few words as we enter this time of joys and sorrows. The holy sits in the center of this. There is a tension between joy and sorrow. So I want to invite you to take some deep breaths as we enter this time. You are not alone. The goodness, the kindness, the mercy, and the love of the holy holds us, surrounds us, and is here to comfort and guide us over every mountain and through every valley we may encounter. Know you are loved and breathe. In the opening quote from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, it begins, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was an age of wisdom, and it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the age of incredulity." I want to remind you there's nothing new under the sun. We have always lived with the forces of good and evil in a struggle. And as humankind, over and over again, generation after generation, we have endured horrific events near and far. And we can be grateful that we are still here to tell and shape the story. I want to invite you to consider a few things. This is a time of continual choice. You have to choose how much negativity you want to take in and inflict upon yourself. Because we care and love deeply, we are in deep pain as we suffer and as we watch and hear of others suffering. So this is a time when practicing our faith is central to our well-being. Over and over again, we must hold up the holy and listen to the positive and sing our holy songs as often as we can. We must live out what we say we believe. And part of our belief connects us not only to the holy, but to one another, to the environment, to the world, to the universe. Staying connected to each other as we live out our faith. Staying connected to the holy. Being in times of reflection, meditation, prayer, building new connections, deepening some connections, walking in solidarity with others is imperative for our mental and physical health and overall well-being right now. The Bible in Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. They are plans for peace, not disaster, to give you a future filled with hope. So for me, this is a time when we have to hold on to hope for today and tomorrow. In the words of some of the old elders that remind us, trouble don't last always, and that weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. We have to be intentional every day about finding something good in every day. We have to be intentional about being grateful every day. We have to be intentional about doing for others on a regular basis. If we do this, if we look for joy, if we look for hope, if we embrace peace, we know this too shall pass. We will get to the other side of the chaos together. The Holy has a plan bigger than what we can see or know. Henry Nouwen said, our tendency is to run from the painful realities or to try to change them as soon as possible. This is the America I know. We try to run from painful realities, or we try to change them as soon as possible. But he says, the cure without care turns us into rulers, controllers, and manipulators. The question is, who do we want to be? I encourage you, let's stay in love. Let's be courageous together. Let's work for justice together. Ashe. It's good to be here with you all. Happy Black History Month. If you're not aware that this is Black History Month, this is a great time for us to be having this conversation, this ongoing conversation. So let me just begin with this sentence. O holy ones whom we call by many names and know in many ways, be with us now as we listen, learn, reflect, and act. Ashe, Amen, and Shalom. So I want to thank my friends, Claudette and Sarah and Bud, for inviting me to join you all here today. We have been journeying together now for over, almost going into 6 years now on this Black Lives Matter to use reparations journey. So I want to start with a couple of quotes because I want to make sure we have the context for which these words are shared with you. And the gravity, for me, of the subject at hand. From the Movement for Black Lives Reparations Now Toolkit, I share these two quotes with you. From Ta-Nehisi Coates, virtually every institution with some degree of history in America, be it public, be it private, has a history of extracting wealth and resources out of the African American community. And behind all of that oppression was actually theft. The second quote, the legacy of slavery, anti-black racism, Jim Crow, and structural discrimination and exclusion from employment, housing, institutions, and communities continues to this day for Black people. Black people in the United States continue to experience the highest rates of poverty, unemployment, health disparities, incarceration, and the lowest wages and rates of wealth accumulation. So reparations are owed in a form and manner to be determined by Black people in the United States. They require a systematic accounting, acknowledgement, and repair of past and ongoing harms, monetary compensation to individuals and institutions led by and accountable to Black communities, and an end to present-day policies and practices that perpetuate harms rooted in a history of anti-Black racism, along with the guarantee that they will not be repeated. Reparations must take as many forms as necessary to equitably address the many forms of injury caused by chattel slavery and its continuing vestiges. And of course, there is a continuum of thought in these comments, and we have a continuum of thought in our community. We are not a monolith. So I do not stand here proclaiming that all Black people feel the same way about this issue, because we don't, all right? So hear these words and accept whatever you will as information, as knowledge, as an opportunity to reflect and think about why we can at least agree to talk about the importance of reparations. So I was invited to invite you to take a deeper dive in the conversation. And I also want to encourage you to be generous, because I understand this is somewhat connected to the Black Lives Matter to UU's fund that people are being invited to offer a gift to. One of the members of the team likes to call it mini reparations, right? Small reparations for the harm. And Black Lives Matter to UU's is a group of people who are working for liberation. And they are working for the liberation of all of us. Because as the words in one of our readings says, freedom is not liberation. A lot of people are under the illusion that it is. So I encourage you to investigate their work, to connect to their work, to listen and learn and journey in that work together so that you can maybe get a new perspective for what we're talking about. Most of you are aware that we straddle the journey of becoming anti-racist. So this is a continuum that we're on. This work to be anti-racist, anti-oppressive, working in ways for liberation for all. Some of us are at the beginning of that journey, while others of us have pushed ourselves along the journey, along the pathway, to confront our ways of thinking, being, and acting. So when we're thinking about taking a deeper dive, some of us are on the shallow end of the pool, and some of us have gone in and immersed ourselves. We have gotten fully wet so that we can be continually cleansed from the hurts and harms of white supremacy culture, thinking, and being. As I was thinking about coming here and sharing with you all today, I was asked to serve on a team that's planning our Greater Milwaukee Synode's upcoming assembly. And our topic for this year is compassion. So I started to think about the connection between compassion to this conversation today. And it got me to thinking about this kind of continuum of feelings and emotions that we live in and swim in, and how they might be helpful for helping us to understand the call for reparations. Right now, I feel like the United States is at a crossroads. And we need to decide who, what, and how we want to be. A country that pushes forward to live into its declarations and creeds as a democracy, or a nation that regresses until we destroy ourselves from within because of our prejudices and hatred of anyone who is different from our own identity. Everyone's choices matter in what and who and how we become as a nation. So when we talk about this emotion of compassion, it's a stop on the continuum of emotions that we have to wrestle with to get to solidarity, equity, and justice. And now people want to take diversity, equity, and inclusion off the table. That cannot be a conversation anymore. So I'm not sure how we move forward. But we must try. The hope I have is that we keep pushing ourselves along the continuum until it becomes natural for us to build beloved community instead of continuing to tear each other down. So as I thought about this continuum, I just started thinking about, so where do we start and where are we trying to go? On this continuum, we begin with sympathy, right? And this is where a lot of people end up. People get stuck feeling sorry for people, but not connecting in deeper and authentic ways. In sympathy, we are relieved that we don't have the same problem. Even though we might see things from another's perspective, it's limited in what we're willing to do about it. For many people, we land at charity, and that's where we get stuck. Charity. It makes us feel good that we've done something. It makes us feel good that we wrote a check. Right? But I'm asking you to take a deeper dive. If you move along that continuum, the next stop along the way is empathy. In empathy, we have the ability to understand how someone feels, and then we share in those feelings with another. Empathy also means that you listen carefully to another, and you accept what they say as their truth. You learn to abide with another in love, in authentic, equitable care. you don't question another's truth. It's a combination of cognitive and emotional reactions to another's experiences. Empathy is a key component of successful relationships and human connection. Empathy helps people feel valued, cared for, and loved. And it also increases the likelihood of someone showing compassion and helping others in a deeper way. And that leads us to compassion, which is further along on the continuum and involves recognizing another's suffering, caring deeply, and taking action to help. Compassion is often considered a key human strength that requires empathy, caring, and sympathy. So it takes all of these things to make up compassion. The word compassion literally means to suffer together. And this is pretty much where some of us part in our attempts to build beloved community. And I would say especially between whites and blacks, but others also. As a person of color who has lived in this skin my whole life and done a lot of work with white people, right? We get some sympathy, some charity from some white people. But what we want is compassion and solidarity. We want people to move further on that continuum. We want deep, authentic relationship, which is the deeper dive. We want solidarity. We want white people to affirm and act in support of our issues, including things like reparations. We want you to feel our pain and stay present with us in it. I know it's a tall order. I know it's a lot to expect, but this is what some of us desire. To get to solidarity, one has to be willing to listen and learn and be vulnerable. All countercultural to white supremacy culture, thinking, and behavior. It's hard work. It's lifetime work. It's not for the faint of heart, which is why many don't want to engage in this work of transformation. Because you will not be in control of others, and sometimes you won't even be in control of your own emotions and actions at times. So I want to invite you this week to sit still and do your own assessment, because that's what we'll be doing in June. We'll be assessing ourselves and we'll be assessing our congregations for where we are on this journey, in this continuum of moving from sympathy to solidarity, and considering where we are and what we're going to do to move to the next place. What are we going to do to take the deeper dive? Finally, I want to leave you with a short story for your further reflection. You will find this story in the Bible in 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 to 14. So I'm going to give you the mini version of it. There was a man named Naaman, a commander in the army of the king of Aram of Syria. He had leprosy. In his household was a young Israelite girl that had been taken captive. She watched him suffer. So she told him, "Go and see the prophet Elisha in Samaria so you can be cured." Naaman went, taking a letter to the king of Israel and all kinds of gifts so that he could be cured. The king of Israel was distressed, thinking that they were trying to pick a fight with him because he couldn't cure Naaman. But Elisha, the prophet, heard about the king, tearing his clothes and weeping. And he told him to tell Naaman to come to him. So Naaman went thinking Elisha was going to personally cure him. I'm sure he thought, since he was such an important man, that Elisha was going to come out and lay hands on him and make sure that he got cured right there in front of everybody else. But instead, Elisha told him to go and wash in the Jordan River 7 times, and that his flesh would be restored. Naaman was mad. How dare you tell me to go and wash in that nasty river? The nasty Jordan River? Are you serious? Can't I go to the rivers of Abana or Pharpar or rivers that are cleaner than this? Right? He was ready to leave. But then his servants said, just try it. What do you have to lose? And so he did. Finally, immersing himself 7 times before his skin was restored like the flesh of a young boy. He was made clean. He was cured of his leprosy. We use this story when we do some of our anti-racism training, my colleague and I, Dr. Joyce Caldwell, because we see a lot of symbolism in this story for purging oneself of the sins and acts of white supremacy culture. Naaman had to listen to people that he didn't even consider important. A young slave girl and his servants. So my question to you is, who do you need to listen to? And what do you need to hear to get you into the water, going deeper and deeper in the purging of the ways of being and thinking that make up and try to keep whiteness as superior? Naaman didn't want to go into the dirty Jordan River. And sometimes it feels the same to me when I hear white people say they wouldn't dare go to Milwaukee, or they wouldn't dare be in a minority around people of color who are different from them. And I say to that, your healing is in your deeper dive into equitable cultural immersion and cross-cultural relationships. This is a part of the journey that you really don't want to miss. You cannot do it alone. You must be immersed in ways of being and thinking and actions that are not comfortable for you. Naaman had to get uncomfortable over and over again. He went in 7 times. My colleague, Dr. Joyce, likes to say that she imagined Naaman the first time going up to the river and taking his boots off, right? Maybe he took the shin things off and he went in and he stood there, hoping that this would be all he had to do to be cured. And then he got back out and he said, I'm not cured. What happened? 7 times, Naaman, 7 times. So he took off a little bit more of his stuff, right? Maybe a little bit more of the armor, maybe something on top. And he went back in. He came back out. He still had leprosy. He had to go in again and again and again. She said he probably had to take off all his clothes. Had to get down to the buff and go in and fully immerse himself. My prayer for you is that you will find the courage to pull off your mask, take off your shields, take off your armor, and fully immerse yourselves in the journey of transformation until your body, your mind, and your spirit are cleansed and healed, and you are made whole by being a part of beloved community. Don't believe the hype, y'all. It's a lot of distraction going on right now that can keep us from doing the work that we are called to do. The negativity, all the distractions, these are not going to bring us to hope. They're not going to bring us to peace and joy and love. We have to work at moving into deeper faith, holy connection, deeper relationships, human connection, deeper dive, transform lives. That's the only way we can move from this end, the shallow, into the deep. So I invite you to join me. Amen. I invite you to receive these words from the theologian, Pastor Walter Brueggemann. Like the ancient prophets, we are dispatched to the good work entrusted to us. It is the work of peacemaking. It is the work of truth-telling. It is the work of justice doing. It is good work, but it requires our resolve to stay in it, even in the face of the forces to the contrary that are sure to prevail for a season. I pray your strength for our work for this season. Amen.